Hi there. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Today's webinar will be focusing on how to know your customers. And this morning, when I woke up and I was going through my reading list, I came across a very interesting quote by a famous mathematician. It says, "In God we trust, everybody else needs to bring data." And this is going to be the main theme of today's discussion is going to be about the importance of having data when making decisions. Even though this applies to lots of different use cases and facets of life, from virtual events, in-person events, retail and so forth, airports, we have done lots of different things. We're going to focus today on retail, and we're going to focus on the first segment, which is knowing your customer. When we think about retail, at least on our end, we're thinking about analytics, understanding consumer behavior. Second, influencing the consumer behavior with adaptive content. And the third one, predictive insights or forecasting, being able to predict what will happen based on the information you have. So as I mentioned previously, today we're going to focus mostly on the insights piece, understanding your consumer. And if we have more time and everybody wants to, we can delve into reports we have done for specific retailers. We can delve into adaptive adverts and so forth. But let's get started, and I'm going to share my screen so that everybody can see and follow at their own pace. If at any point you are not able to see the information, or you're not able to, or you have any questions, please jump in. We want this to be an interactive session as much as possible. So again, today we're going to start from the in-store insights, and we're talking about solutions for retail brands. So these are usually either brands that they're putting products in the store without having physical locations of their own. You can think of Pepsi, Red Bull, and so forth. Or alternatively, it can be about brands that they have their own products in their own stores. Brands like Nike, that they have their own shoes and they have their own stores and so forth. So we're going to start by setting a story. This is an actual discussion we had with a retailer, with a retail brand. And what they did in this case, they had the retail brand, they opened 3 identical stores. To give you more context and flavor and why it is important to have this kind of data, they hired a commercial real estate broker to pick the best locations for them in the city. So they said we're going to open 3 stores, pop-up stores in the same city, and we want to pick the best locations in that city. So they paid the commercial real estate broker to give them the best spots. They negotiated the lease with the retail store, with the mall owner, and so forth. So they found the locations, they paid the commercial real estate broker, they went into a lease, then they paid another company to just brand it and make it look nice based on their company and their product. They hired people to actually go and have staff inside the store. And last but not least, they started promoting these locations in social media, in advertising, in different ways, online, physical, mail, and so forth. And the challenge is that after opening, and they opened for a while, the first store was doing really well. They were hitting the sales they were expecting, the traffic they were expecting, and so forth. But 2 of the stores, they were 3 times lower in sales, and they didn't know why. And that's the most important thing, knowing why something works or why it doesn't. So they tried experimenting by rotating the staff in the different locations, by changing the window displays to attract more people in, but they really didn't know what is happening. Why one store is doing well, why the other 2 stores they're not doing well. They're all in the same city. They all have the same branding, same color, same everything. Why is this happening? And this is what usually differentiates brands and companies, that they will make it and they will grow big and they will start, populating and making more sales, and the brands that they don't, understanding the why and adjusting by using data. So the insights they wanted to collect, some of the parameters they wanted to collect was, okay, since the stores that look the same, and we have done the branding, the promotion in a similar manner, it's the same city, maybe what is going on, the demographics of the consumers walking in the area or walking around the store and so forth, walking inside the store, they are different. Maybe one has, skewed to a specific demographic group and the other two don't, and that's why that one is making more sales. So they wanted to see if there's a difference in the demographic profile of people visiting the stores. The second thing they wanted to test is, okay, if we assume it is the same demographic profile across the stores, maybe the people sitting behind the desk, when they're speaking to the customers, they're engaging in a way that in some cases it is very conducive and very welcoming and very warm, and they're making them feel good, which means they convert to actual paying customers. Or maybe for some reason, the person sitting behind the desk, they are not doing as good of a job, and then the customers are being turned off, and that's why they don't have sales. So they wanted to have a way of being able to measure the customer sentiment to understand the differences, because again, maybe it is the same demographic profile, maybe it is a different sentiment. Last but not least, they said, okay, maybe the staff is not the issue, maybe the demographic groups, they are the same. What if one store simply has more traffic than the other for whatever reason? So the way it works and how we're deploying in these and other instances is you just put a very small camera. It can be near the entrance, it can be near the counter, and it's capturing people walking inside the space. And then you can collect all of this information. And once you have information, you can see what works and why. And let me dive a little bit into some of the sample reports of what one company could get on a high level. And then we can get into a little bit more low-level reports and insights that we can provide to specific people. So again, as we said, knowledge is power. Knowing why something works or know why it doesn't work means you can double down on the right things and you can eliminate the things that don't work. So let's go over the example where you have one store and a second store. And you're measuring the number of impressions, which is how much traffic each location has. And it is about the same on a weekly basis. So let's say it's about the same, but one location has more sales than the others. This is when you can start saying, okay, we have the same traffic, why one store is performing better than the other? You can start delving a little bit deeper. And in this case, for example, you might say that the female ratio is much, much higher than the male, whereas in this case, it's not as much. So this is the first indication that maybe the product is speaking more to women than men. And that's why when you have a higher percentage of women, you have more conversions, even though the traffic is about the same. So let me say that again a little bit slower. Even though the same number of customers walk through the stores or visitors, in one store, it's mostly female population that is walking through the stores, and that's why you have more conversions. Whereas in the other, that this is not the case, you might have lower conversions. So this can be one factor of what is going on, and you can take actions to adjust by maybe changing the window display, or perhaps you can take other courses of action, such as promotions, discounts, social media, trying to talk more to your key demographic. The second thing is that you can take a look at the sentiment, and you can see how it changes also per demographic to further reinforce what you were thinking. So if males, they are mostly neutral, they're not like excited about the store, about their experience inside the space, whereas the female population is, okay, that's another indication that most likely there is a correlation between sentiment and sales. But more importantly, you can also see if the positive sentiment is focusing on a specific group. Like in this case, you see that the female population doesn't have a highly positive sentiment. So what this means, in this store, you have two things going on for you. First, you have the key demographic walking through the doors. And second, the staff inside the store, they are engaging with the customers, keeping them satisfied. And that's why you see such a high results. I want to, first of all, to make a very quick pause to see if anybody has any questions. And if not, we can dive a little bit deeper in some of the reports and outputs that the brands get. So I'm just going to wait for 10, 15 seconds, see if anybody wants to type a question, and we're going to see it and answer it. And if not, we're going to proceed with some of the more specific case studies and reports that people get. These are real data from real deployments. Okay, we have one question about how does it work, and we can get into that later because for the first part, we would like to focus on what it does, why is it useful, how brands can actually get a better idea about their customers, and we can get into the how it works later on at the end, or maybe even we can have another webinar just focusing about the technical aspects of how different ways of collecting this information. Because by the way, as we mentioned previously, using a camera is one way of collecting the information. But of course, if you want to be successful and have more data, you can complement the information. You can do field surveys, you can do remote surveys, and you can get more data points in order to have a more holistic view. Okay, unless we have other questions, we can delve into a specific report. And let me zoom in so that everybody can see a little bit better. So we have anonymized the report so that we don't expose any sensitive information. But I can give you some of the background. It is a popular brand. This one is based in Europe. And the first thing that they wanted to see, this specific brand, they had promotions during the holidays. So about once a month, they have a different store promotion, a different activation, a different experiential campaign. So they wanted to see what is the impact, first, on consumer behavior, and second, what is the impact on sales, on the top line. So they used our IoT devices, they installed in the store to be able to collect these analytics. So when we were producing the report, we didn't have all the context, we just have the data to go through and use. So the very interesting thing was the following. The first promotion was between December 26th and January 12th. So this was mostly during the holidays. The second part was between January 12th and February 7th. So before getting into details, what we were seeing in the data, and you will see it later on, was we were seeing that in the second period, there was more traffic, better sentiment data, better dwell times, and we were assuming that they will have more sales, but we were skeptical about it. We were very skeptical because we thought, you know what, during the holidays, this is when there are most of the sales. Why are we seeing the data such a different picture and an improvement in the second period? And I will let you know at the end why this was the case. So first of all, in less than 1 month, we had about 9,000 impressions, 9,000 faces we captured. In this case, very important to disclose was that because of the position of the camera, we were capturing some of the staff. So we have recommended them to change the position, to put it in front of the desk, not behind the desk, so that we will not capture people's faces, the staff faces. Now, the first positive indication we had when we were doing the review of the data was that during the second promotion, the customer satisfaction was increased. So we were able, first of all, to give them an indication of what percentage of the people spend 30 or more seconds, 17% of the people, or more than 1 minute, 5% of the people. So ideally, you want transactions to go quickly. The first thing was that people that stayed about 30 seconds to 1 minute, they had about 44% of them, they had a very positive experience, which is good. When you have about 1 in 2 people having an excellent experience, that's a very, very good thing, which was a 2% improvement over the first period. And for those that spend more than 60 seconds, again, a good portion of them, 1 in 3, they had an excellent experience. Doesn't mean that everybody else had a terrible experience, but you want to have a good percentage of people that have an excellent experience. So that was a 4% improvement over the previous period. So overall, we had very good data to show that maybe this promotion is working better. I'm sorry, jump ahead. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Now, the next thing that we saw was that the time in view, how long people stayed in the field of view for older demographic groups, this is usually 40, 50, 60 plus, decreased. And by the way, on the previous report we gave them for the first period was that this group was the least satisfied. Let me say it this way, it was the least satisfied. So we saw that the time in view, the dwell time, how long they spend in the field of view, was reduced by 3% for middle age between 40 and 60, and it was reduced by 11% compared with the previous period, which is 60 plus. So it was overall a very good indication, because the faster customer service usually makes people happier. Nobody wants to wait in line. Nobody wants to be a long time in the store waiting to find something. The next thing that we saw was that the seniors, they had again the lowest positive sentiment. But look at this, the 60 plus years old, they had a 31% improvement. That's a very, very interesting statistic. So the 60 plus years old, they had a 30% improvement, which was the most challenging area for them. So there's a very, very clear evidence that the promo B, the second promotion they did in that period, had a very, very, very compelling and relatable story to this demographic, which was one of the key demographics for this brand. The last big insight we provided was that we were able to see that the average traffic during the second promotional period increased. Again, promotional A were the holidays that everybody would expect more sales, but we saw more traffic in the promo B inside the store. And we analyzed the different groups separately, male, female, young, old, separately, to make sure that this increase in traffic that we saw was actual real. And the seniors was about the same. Men increased 33%. We had middle age increased 25%, and overall impressions increased about 60%. We had a smaller increase in women, which was very interesting because it wasn't the key demographic. So when we put all of these things together, what we told to the brand was that, you know what, most likely we assume that in the second promotion you had more sales. And I said, yes. I said, why? We were expecting more sales to be made during the holiday season. And I said, during the second promotional period, we gave discounts. So we had a good discount program because we want to maintain the sales and momentum from the holiday period. And that's why you're seeing these results in the data. And that's why we were able to correlate them with their actual sales figures. So it was very, very, reassuring for us on how strong the data is in being able to understand which demographics are driving sales, which demographics need improvement in which metrics. Is it the dwell time? Is it the engagement with the staff? Which promotions works for which ones, for which groups, and so forth. So right now, what we will do moving forward with this brand, they're going to start sharing with us the actual sales data. So we're able to have even stronger correlations between sales performance and different satisfaction rates, dwell times, and so forth from specific groups. And by using this information, they can run more effective promotions and they can increase the sales by a large margin. So with that said, we have covered quite a bit on the understanding your customer and the importance of knowing which promotions work, why they work, which is your key demographic, and how you can improve the store performance. One note that we want to make is the following: that usually small business owners, if they have 1 or 2 locations, even though this is useful data, they do not always have the in-house capability, a marketing department to be able to leverage this kind of data. And this is where it's very, very useful to have, if you are yourself a small business owner, work with a marketing agency, work with a retail agency that they can advise you on practices on how to scale up your business. They will use data like the ones we provide. They will use other sources of information, and they will help you make the right decisions to scale up. If you are an agency, because I can see the others, we have a few of agencies in the marketing space, in retail, below the line marketing, that's information you should start using to help your customers grow more, because the more they grow, the more they will use your service. It really works for everyone. It's a win-win situation. We will make one final post to see if there are any questions. And then we can either conclude the webinar, because we don't want to drag it on for too long. It's Friday. Everybody wants to go and enjoy the weekend. And unless we have any more questions, then we will end the webinar, and we have a quick poll to ask your questions, your preferences about the next topic. We can talk about adaptive displays. We can talk about privacy. We can talk about security. We can talk about how the product works. We just want to give you a very, very quick flavor on the first analytics. Again, this is the first pillar of the three. This is just the first pillar of the three. Just know your customers. We will cover adaptive adverts. We will cover forecasting, and we will cover many different use cases from airports, retail stores, business events, and more. So I'll wait a few seconds to see if there are any questions, and if not, any requests, anything like that, any remarks. If not, we're going to conclude. So let me bring up my Q&A. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. I will give it another 10 to 15 seconds. And if we don't have anything, we are going to conclude here. And we're going to cover adaptive adverts most likely on the next webinar, unless the poll and your preferences indicate that you want to cover another educational topic. Excellent. I think it is time to call it. Thank you everyone for joining, and best wishes for a very nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.